Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that might just shift your spirit today. There's a reason why some women don't break. They've walked through the fire. They've felt betrayal, heartbreak, and disrespect. And still, they carry themselves like nothing ever touched them. Not because they're cold, not because they're numb, but because they are covered. There's a force surrounding her, guiding her, making a way even when she cannot see it. And once you begin to recognize those signs, you'll understand why she keeps getting back up, why no weapon formed against her truly prospers. So if you are that woman or you're becoming her, don't scroll past this. Every moment of this message is a mirror reflecting the strength you carry into the world. It may look like she's alone, like she's missing something. People wonder how a woman like her moves through life without always needing someone by her side. No entourage, no crowd, no loud entrance, just her moving with grace, silence, and deep purpose. But what they don't understand is that she's never truly alone. She isn't empty. She isn't waiting for applause. She isn't searching for attention. She's walking with something deep, something most people miss because they're too busy chasing noise. She's seen too much to depend on temporary people. She's had individuals come and go from her life like a revolving door, and each departure taught her something she couldn't ignore. She's been betrayed by those she trusted, abandoned when she needed someone the most, and still, she refused to let it destroy her. It didn't turn her bitter, it made her wiser. It showed her that some people enter your life only to teach you how to stand on your own, and once you master that walk, you realize you were never truly abandoned. You were being covered, separated, protected for something greater. What felt like loss was preparation. What felt like isolation was actually positioning. She learned that solitude was not punishment, but a classroom where strength is built quietly and deeply. When a woman learns how to walk on her own, it means she has learned how to hear her own voice again. Not the voices of guilt, not the lies of fear, not the whispers of manipulation. Her own voice, the one that speaks truth even when the world tries to drown it out. The one that tells her when to leave a room, when to cut ties, when to trust, and when to hold back. That voice is never loud. It's sacred. It only speaks when peace is present. That's why she chooses to walk alone sometimes, so she can hear it clearly without interference. She knows that not every presence is a blessing. Not every crowd is safe. Not every friend is loyal. She has learned how to read energy, how to notice what doesn't sit right with her soul, how to recognize danger even when it wears a smile. And after spending enough time around the wrong people, being alone begins to feel like peace. It isn't loneliness, it's liberation. It's the kind of freedom that makes you enjoy your own company. And that is what makes her untouchable. She no longer fears silence because silence became the place where she rediscovered herself. Evil doesn't always come waving red flags. Sometimes it blends in, sometimes it charms, sometimes it pretends to be exactly what you need. And those who are constantly distracted, always needing someone around, often miss those signs. But not her, because she has learned to walk solo. She has developed a sharp spirit. She doesn't need loud warnings. She can sense when something feels off. Her spirit speaks louder than words, and her quietness keeps her alert. She observes more than she says, and that awareness keeps her steps steady and intentional. People often ask, how is she so comfortable being by herself? What they fail to understand is that solitude taught her the difference between being needed and being used. It showed her how to stop pouring into empty hands. It taught her that love isn't about begging anyone to stay. It's about honoring yourself enough to let go when something no longer aligns. She no longer fears releasing people. She embraces it because she knows peace is too expensive to keep paying for with her energy. She learned that protecting her spirit is not selfish, it's necessary. What guards her isn't just physical, it's spiritual. It's the unseen hand that pulls her away from harm. It's the inner whisper that says no, even when everything around her screams yes. That protection might not be loud. No big signs, no applause, but it appears in moments others never notice. The message she didn't reply to, the person she didn't meet, the offer she turned down that later revealed itself as chaos in disguise. That isn't luck. That is divine protection. And she has learned to trust it without needing to explain it to anyone. That protection becomes stronger when she walks in silence. Because when you move with too many voices around you, their noise drowns out your clarity. Their opinions blur your vision. But when you walk alone, your insight sharpens. You hear better. You move with power instead of pressure. And that kind of power cannot be touched by darkness. It isn't loud or aggressive. It's calm, centered, and grounded. She knows that real strength doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists and remains steady in every storm. Some people will misunderstand her. They'll say she's distant, that she's cold, but they don't realize that her silence isn't a wall. It's a sanctuary. It's where she restores herself. It's where she listens to truth. It's where she rebuilds her strength. And most importantly, it's where she becomes unshakable. She's not wandering. She's not lost. She's not moving without direction. She's being led. Every step she takes has reason. Every path she chooses has purpose. Every quiet moment reminds her that she is not weak or unprotected. Being protected doesn't always look like armor or swords. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like solitude. Sometimes it looks like a woman walking alone, yet carrying the strength of an army within her. So next time you see her walking confidently with no one beside her, don't pity her. Don't assume she's missing something. Understand that she's walking in power. She's aligned. She's in a season where separation is protection, and she has never been stronger than she is now. She doesn't owe anyone explanations. She doesn't wait for people to show their true colors before trusting her intuition. Her spirit senses things before actions confirm them. When someone steps into her space, she feels it. A shift in energy, a strange tension, a silent alarm that rises within. It isn't paranoia, it's awareness. She doesn't guess, she knows. When she enters a space, she sees not only with her eyes, but with her soul. While others fall for smooth words, fake smiles, and shiny appearances, she sees beyond the surface. She isn't impressed by show. She isn't moved by masks. She has danced with pain. She has survived deception. She has faced betrayal and still found her way back to herself. And once you've walked through that fire, your spirit doesn't just heal, it transforms. Her awareness is now her armor. Her quietness becomes her defense. She pays attention not only to words, but to tone, to timing, to the feeling behind what's said. That uneasy sensation when someone smiles, but your heart feels heavy. She listens to that without hesitation. That's how she stays protected. Not by fighting, not by accusing, but by recognizing. She doesn't need to argue to prove she understands what's happening. Her spirit already confirms it. Sometimes she can't even explain why she feels the way she does. But when someone looks perfect on paper and something still feels off, she trusts that feeling. She doesn't wait for drama to unfold. She doesn't beg for closure. She simply creates space because she understands that not everything that looks good is meant for her life. Not every opportunity is divine. Not every admirer comes with pure intentions. That's why she stays safe. She doesn't silence her inner voice. She leans into it because it has never led her wrong. That voice has saved her from another painful cycle. It warned her before danger arrived. It protected her when words failed and when people disappointed her. She doesn't broadcast her intuition. She simply moves differently. When something shifts, she adjusts. No chasing, no begging, no guilt. She protects her peace without apology or hesitation. She doesn't care about proving a point. She's focused on preserving what she fought hard to build. Her peace, her vision, her healing. Darkness isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it wears a smile. Sometimes it pretends to help. That's why her intuition is her strongest defense. She has seen kindness used as manipulation. She has walked away from conversations that looked normal, but left her spirit drained. That's why she no longer judges with her eyes alone. She listens with her spirit, and that changes everything about the way she moves. The more she trusts that inner truth, the more aligned she becomes. Confusion no longer controls her. People who once had easy access to her energy can no longer reach her the same way. She knows the cost of ignoring her spirit because she has done it before. She gave chances she shouldn't have given. She stayed longer than she should have stayed. She ignored signs that later became lessons. But she learned. And now she doesn't give darkness the benefit of the doubt. Her shield is her awareness, and her gift is seeing without speaking loudly. She doesn't always need to call things out. Sometimes she simply removes herself. Sometimes the strongest response is no reaction at all, just wisdom, just stillness, just quiet movement forward. She doesn't debate what her spirit already knows. If something feels wrong, she trusts it. That keeps her ahead, miles ahead. Some will call her too guarded, too sensitive, but they don't understand that her sensitivity is her superpower. It was shaped by pain, refined by experience, and strengthened through survival. She doesn't ignore the shift in the room. She feels it and honors it. That's why darkness can't easily reach her. That's why manipulators feel uncomfortable around her. They can't hide behind fake smiles or polished words because she sees through it all. She doesn't need proof to validate what she senses. Her knowing is silent, but it's powerful. And that deep knowing, that sacred intuition, is what keeps her from walking into traps, from falling for empty words, from entertaining what doesn't align with her soul. She can sense shadows before they even appear, and that's why she walks in light. Not only the kind people can see, but the kind that helps her truly see. And that kind of light no evil can touch. The enemy is not worth her energy. That isn't weakness, that is wisdom. She's been through too much to let petty people pull her into chaos. She's seen how the enemy moves, not always by attacking directly, but by distracting her, stealing her focus, disturbing her peace, and trying to blur her purpose. Once you understand that some people show up to provoke you, not because they are strong, but because they feel threatened by your calm, you stop giving them the satisfaction of your reaction. She knows how to walk away, not because she's afraid to fight, but because she refuses to waste her fire on battles that lead nowhere. She realizes some people appear only to create confusion, to test her patience, to tempt her to respond out of character. But she has grown beyond that space. She's too grounded, too focused. Growth teaches you that silence can be your power, distance can be your defense, and peace becomes your victory. She has learned that protection doesn't always mean being hidden from the storm. Sometimes it means having the strength to ignore it, to not reply to the message, to not show up for the conflict, to not get trapped in the noise. That's real maturity. When you are not shaken by every push or provocation, when you recognize the trap and choose to go around it instead of through it, you protect yourself without lifting a finger. Some will try to disturb her peace. They'll attempt to provoke her with lies, guilt, and manipulation. They will press her buttons just to see if they still have access to her reactions. But she's upgraded. She has leveled up. She doesn't run on emotions anymore. She doesn't move on impulse. She walks with intention. She knows her attention is valuable, and she refuses to waste it on people who haven't earned her presence. That's the difference between a woman who is protected and one who is reactive. A wise woman has learned to pause before speaking, breathe before replying, and think before acting. She understands that some people only want to drain her energy. They want to distract her from her mission. They want to break her focus because they can't handle how centered she has become. When you carry light, darkness always tries to pull you toward the shadows, but it only succeeds if you decide to step into them. So she remains grounded. She guards her peace carefully. She lets people assume, talk, and think whatever they choose. Because at the end of the day, her purpose speaks louder than their opinions. She isn't here to prove her value. She's here to protect her energy. And that's what unsettles wicked people. A woman who doesn't flinch, doesn't respond, and allows her silence to speak louder than their noise. When you don't react, you remove their power. When you don't respond, they're left talking to themselves. And when you walk away from battles that were never yours to fight, you walk away with your peace intact. Her protection lives in that stillness, in the wisdom that reminds her she doesn't need to fight every fight. She knows she doesn't have to win every argument. She doesn't have to explain herself to people determined to misunderstand her. She knows who sent her. She knows what lives inside her. And that's why she doesn't need to prove anything. Some will call her cold. Others will say she's distant, that she should have spoken up, that she should have reacted. But she understands the cost of stepping into unnecessary mess. She knows how quickly you can lose your footing when you fight in places you were never meant to stand. So she doesn't argue. And she doesn't defend. She simply rises above the drama, above the noise, above the confusion. Because elevation requires separation. Every time she walks away from something meant to destroy her peace, she is protected. Every time she chooses silence over revenge, she becomes stronger. Every time she refuses to prove herself to those beneath her purpose, she grows. She doesn't take on every battle, because some are just noise, some are bait, and some are beneath the woman she has become. Her discipline is her protection, her silence is her armor, and her victory lies in the fact that she is still standing, calm, focused, steady, and powerful. While the world tries to pull her down, she remains unshaken. She doesn't fall for every trap. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't fight because she already knows she has won. Not everyone deserves a place in her life, and she understands that deeply. She isn't chasing popularity. She isn't trying to impress anyone. Her loyalty cannot be purchased, and her energy is not up for grabs. She values her peace too much to allow just anyone close. Because once you have been betrayed, once you have been wounded by those you trusted, once you've faced fake smiles hiding real harm, you learn lessons that change you forever. You learn that access to you is earned, not automatically given. She doesn't keep people around just to avoid being lonely. She doesn't settle for shallow friendships that drain her spirit. If it isn't genuine, if it isn't built on truth, love, and trust, she releases it without hesitation. She is not afraid of being alone. In fact, she thrives there, because in her silence, she discovers clarity. In her stillness, she hears wisdom that noise would otherwise drown out. That's why her circle is small, not because she's antisocial, but because she is intentional with her energy. She understands that the people you allow close can either lift you higher or pull you down, so she protects her space like it is sacred ground. She has seen that evil doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it hides behind a soft smile. Sometimes the loudest cheerers secretly hope you fail. She has felt that sting before. Now she listens deeper and watches closer. She no longer allows labels like friend, family, or love to blind her to behavior. She doesn't need a crowd. She only needs a loyal few. People who celebrate her without competition, people who don't gossip because they have character, people who don't smile in her face and plot behind her back. And if she doesn't find those people, she's perfectly fine walking alone. Because being at peace with herself is far better than being in chaos with others. She would rather walk alone in truth than be surrounded by lies. Her spirit stays pure because she does the inner work. She doesn't just guard herself from others, she checks herself too. She faces her own flaws. She holds herself accountable. She forgives not because others deserve it, but because she refuses to carry bitterness. That is her protection, refusing to let darkness grow within her own heart. She understands that what you carry becomes what you attract. So she releases hate, she releases envy, she releases revenge, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. She knows a clean heart hears clearer. She knows blessings flow more freely when the soul isn't blocked. Evil grows in bitterness, and she refuses to feed it. She lets go of pain. She heals, and through that healing, she becomes untouchable. Evil people cannot trap her with guilt. They cannot twist her emotions. They cannot drag her into their games because she is no longer living from old wounds. She is aligned now. Her tight circle is her shield. It's not about how many people surround her. It's about how real they are. Real recognizes real. Loyalty finds loyalty. And her life is built on truth, not attention. That's why darkness cannot reach her. It cannot survive in an atmosphere that pure. A clean spirit exposes hidden intentions in others. It makes manipulators uncomfortable. It makes liars uneasy. It makes users walk away because they can no longer feed off her energy. She doesn't chase people. She doesn't beg for love. She doesn't force connections that don't flow naturally. If it isn't mutual, if it isn't sincere, she lets it go. She understands that anything forced isn't right. Anything truly meant for her will not require sacrificing her peace. That's why she sleeps soundly. Not because life is perfect, but because her circle is true and her spirit is at rest. And no matter how deeply she loves someone, if they disturb her peace, she will choose herself every single time. Because she is not afraid of solitude. She is afraid of losing herself in false connections, of giving to people who only take, of repeating cycles she worked hard to break. So she stays guarded, not closed, just wise. And when something feels off, she trusts that feeling because experience taught her peace is a compass. Chaos is a warning. Her circle is filled with people who don't need to be watched. Their loyalty speaks for itself. Her spirit is pure because she has done the work. Her life is protected not because she fights darkness constantly, but because she refuses to invite it in. That's why she stands tall. That's why she walks boldly. She isn't carrying dead weight. She isn't dragging old pain behind her. She isn't entertaining soft-voiced snakes disguised as comfort. Her life is rooted in truth, and that truth cannot be shaken. Not by lies, not by betrayal, not by evil, hiding behind sweet words. Her circle is tight, her spirit is clean, and that balance is her armor. There's something powerful about a woman who doesn't panic when the storm arrives. While others lose control and grasp for order, she stays steady, calm, firm, grounded. She does not allow the chaos outside to disturb the calm she built within. Her peace isn't built on conditions. It's built on knowing who she is, trusting what she carries, and choosing stillness over noise every time. It's built on something stronger, something earned, something forged through hardship, pain, and struggle. She didn't find peace because life was gentle with her. She found it because life tested her, broke her, stretched her, and she still stood tall. This kind of peace cannot be faked. You can't pretend your way into it. You can't borrow it from someone else. You have to earn it. You have to walk through fire and refuse to let that fire define who you are. You have to watch everything fall apart and still choose not to collapse with it. You have to lose what you once believed you needed, say goodbye to people you thought were forever, and still rise with purpose in your heart. That is where real peace is born, not in comfort, but in overcoming. Trouble will come, but she isn't shaken by it because she's rooted in something deeper than emotion. She doesn't chase after closure. She doesn't demand explanations. She has discovered that peace often arrives the moment you stop trying to figure everything out and start trusting the journey itself. She doesn't need all the answers to feel secure. She just needs her mindset to stay steady. That's why when problems appear, she doesn't panic. She has been there before. She has stood in darkness and refused to let it consume her. She has felt fear and still kept moving forward with quiet strength. She has cried through nights that felt endless and still rose in the morning with fire in her spirit. She knows how to stay calm in the middle of chaos because her peace is not tied to the absence of problems. It's tied to the power she has built within herself. People often mistake her stillness for weakness, but they have no idea what it took for her to arrive there. It takes courage to remain calm when everything around you is loud. It takes inner strength to stay kind in a world that pushes anger. She doesn't argue just to be right. She doesn't fall apart because life didn't go according to plan. She has learned how to move with the waves without letting them drown her. That isn't just growth, it's protection. It's true spiritual armor. She doesn't need everything around her to be calm in order to feel okay. She builds peace within herself. She protects it. She nurtures it. She guards it like something sacred because she knows people will try to shake her and life will try to break her. But as long as her inner world stays in order, the chaos outside cannot touch her. That is why you'll see her walking through fire with a calm smile, like she's strolling through peace instead of panic. Because peace isn't about what's happening around you. It's about what lives inside you. And toxic people dislike that. They hate that they cannot reach her, that their chaos doesn't move her, that their silence doesn't make her question herself, that their mind games no longer work on her. They will throw shade, but she won't blink. They will try to confuse her, but she stays clear because she understands that if someone cannot steal your peace, they cannot steal your strength. So she holds on to it tightly because in many ways, her life truly depends on it. She isn't blind to reality. She knows storms will come. Life has shown her that peace doesn't mean life becomes perfect. It only means you are no longer controlled by the imperfections. That's why she doesn't speak fear into her future. She doesn't expect failure as a default. She prepares her mind, she strengthens her spirit, and she walks with quiet confidence through every low point because she knows valleys are temporary, but the character built there lasts forever. She doesn't need everyone to agree with her path. She doesn't explain her decisions to people who only want to judge them. Her peace protects her from that noise. It gives her space to move quietly, to choose her battles, to walk away without constantly justifying herself, to focus on what truly matters, to breathe deeply even when life feels heavy. That is real protection, not from pain itself, but from reactions that give pain more power. So while others panic, spin, and rush, she moves slowly. She moves with intention. Because when your peace is whole, your vision stays clear. You don't chase, you don't fear, you don't collapse, you flow, you trust, you rise. Even when the world feels like it's falling apart, she doesn't, because she is not built on the world. She is built on strength, on wisdom, on an inner core no storm can shake. That's how you recognize a woman who is protected, not because life never tests her, but because when it does, she remains steady. She doesn't let the noise outside disturb the calm inside. And that calm is the mark of a woman who has walked through fire and emerged stronger. A woman who knows herself deeply. A woman who doesn't need life to slow down because she already carries peace within her. There is something fierce about a woman who doesn't beg for answers, doesn't chase people, and doesn't cling to what is clearly slipping away. When her spirit senses a shift, when the vibe turns heavy, when the peace begins to fade, she pays attention. She doesn't wait for drama. She doesn't need proof. She doesn't require a big scene to confirm what her soul already knows. She simply walks away, and she does it with her head high, full of grace, and without looking back. She understands what many forget. Peace is expensive, and anything threatening that stillness is too costly to keep. She isn't afraid to release things. She's not scared to lose people. She's not worried about disappointing those who expected her to settle, because she knows the price of staying misaligned is greater than the pain of leaving. Some might call her silence cold, but she knows its clarity, its strength, its self-preservation. She doesn't entertain confusion. She doesn't engage with chaos. She doesn't argue for validation. When something feels off in her soul, she honors it. She respects her intuition like it's sacred, because she has learned that sometimes your soul understands what your mind hasn't caught up to yet. If you keep staying where you feel empty, eventually you start shrinking just to survive. And she is not here to shrink. She is here to live fully. She walks away, not because she's cold, but because she's healed. She walks because she understands you can love deeply and still let go. You can forgive completely and still choose not to reopen the door. She is not bitter. She's simply no longer willing to bleed for people who wouldn't even notice her pain. That isn't arrogance. It is growth earned the hard way. When she leaves, she doesn't slam doors. She doesn't throw words or create noise. That's not her way. Her quiet exit says more than loud reactions ever could. And those who truly notice her understand that when she leaves, something meaningful leaves with her. Because her presence is not ordinary. It brings light, it brings healing, it brings calm. And when she's gone, the atmosphere feels different. What she brought cannot be copied or replaced. Toxic souls hate that. They hate that she refuses to play their games, refuses to pretend, refuses to lower her standards just to be accepted. They hate that guilt no longer works on her. Chaos cannot pull her in anymore. She's too grounded now, too rooted in truth, too connected to her purpose to let anything throw her off course. There's a reason she doesn't explain herself anymore, doesn't defend her silence, doesn't argue her choices. She understands that peace doesn't need explanation. You either feel it or you don't. And if someone doesn't feel it, that is not her burden to carry. She didn't come here to be understood by everyone. She came to protect her light, live her truth, and walk in her calling. And if leaving is what it takes to guard that light, she will walk away with grace and without hesitation. She has learned how to let go, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. She knows some people only arrive to teach you what to avoid. Some situations come only to remind you of your value. And when their purpose ends, so does her presence. She doesn't force things to stay. She is finished watering dead plants, finished explaining herself to people who benefit from her confusion, finished showing up where she is barely welcomed. When she leaves, it isn't anger that guides her. It's care for herself. It's about honoring the woman she is becoming, the one who doesn't shrink to make others comfortable, the one who isn't available for anything that doesn't help her grow, heal, or rise. That woman is unstoppable. And that's how you know she is protected, because no matter how loud things get, no matter how tempting the chaos becomes, no matter how many people try to pull her back, she walks away, not just with her feet, but with her heart, her energy, and her spirit fully intact. She doesn't leave pieces of herself behind in broken places. She leaves whole. She leaves ready for what's next. That kind of wisdom, that kind of peace, that kind of self-love isn't learned from books. It's learned through pain, through betrayal, through long nights and quiet strength. That is how she became this version of herself. A woman who doesn't just survive toxic energy, but rises above it, because nothing dark can cling to a soul this aligned, this aware, this deeply covered. If you recognize even a small trace of this in your own life, understand something important. You are not forgotten. You are not weak. And you are certainly not being punished. You are being protected. And sometimes the greatest blessing isn't what arrives, but what never makes it to your door. Walk boldly. You are chosen.